Always great to be between you and lunch. So super to be on stage. I was actually smiling. I've had a couple of offline conversations with you, but my journey in Africa and with East Africa goes back a while. My first trip to Kenya was in 1999. I was all of brand new at Hewlett-Packard, and I'll never forget it. It was my first presentation as a vendor, and I walked into an audience similar to yourselves, and I thought, oh my goodness, I've walked into the World Economic Forum. And I was absolutely petrified. And it was my first presentation, and I'll never ever forget the warmth and hospitality that was shared with me on that day by the Kenyan audience that was there. And it was a great birthright into the world of Africa. So I'm back, haven't been here for 3 years. Every time I come back, I'm absolutely blown away with the speed at which this region, East Africa, catapults itself forward. And really, if you look at all the conversations that are happening today, it's really about how we're using technology to embrace and effectively catapult this region and embrace innovation in order to take you forward. So the topics, I mean, it was quite interesting. I was on a panel conversation this morning, and I keep hearing the same discussion, which is really around, skills. It's really around complexity. It's really around regulation. It's really around how do we optimize and how do we take advantage of this new world that's ahead of us. I mean, I heard, I mentioned this morning of this incredible opportunity that we have ahead of us. Munia, you were mentioning a number of, fintechs that are registered. I was doing some homework before I arrived here, and I couldn't believe that I think it's over 60 registered fintechs in Kenya alone, over 100 in South Africa, and expanding by the moment. So I think to coin a phrase that was used earlier, if we're not embracing technology in order to propel ourselves forward in any organization, whether it's a financial organization or otherwise, then we're going to be left behind. And that's obvious, especially when we start looking at our kids, right? I mean, you did mention I have 13-year-old twins. Trust me, they terrify me. So the topic I have today is payment modernization, and I'm an old girl, as you can see. And I love to take notes. And all the way through these sessions, I had so many reference points. So please forgive my crib notes as I'm going along, because they really are referenced into the content that I wanted to share with you today. Because when you talk about payment modernizations, it's really around modernizing the app, because at the end of the day, the app is central to the user. The way you engage with the user is effectively through the application. It's the first point of contact. And I think if you look at my presentation as I go along through this discussion, our journey with our customers is really how we can help you embrace not only these new modern apps and secure them and provide them to you in a way that you receive them on a single digital platform, but it ties into the legacy. It ties into some of the infrastructure you're still cumbered with. You still carry, because these are really critical, especially in the financial sector, where in many ways the financial sector was the first to come in with technology. And so as a result, how can we as an organization help you combine that legacy with the new world of modern apps in a simplified single digital framework, and at the same time enable you to deliver those in a secure, compliant, easier to manage, clear, visible platform. So it was quite interesting. I mean, the minister, Mr. Jerome Ocheng, mentioned that you needed to focus as a financial institution on customer first, right? And we say the same thing, right? The digital experience that banks need to provide is really around customer first. And those demands of customers today differ. They're not the same customers as you had 5 years ago. Customers demand instant gratification. They want the best access to, internet banking. They want the best access to their personal loan information. They want a customized experience, and they want the best. And in order to differentiate yourself, you really have to do that. Lanre mentioned in his open banking session, the data effectively that we're gathering with these new wonderful tools, with AI, with machine learning, et cetera, that belongs to people. So how do you use that information in order to differentiate your services, but at the same time make sure that data is protected? It's kind of tight, right? It's a heavy weight to carry if you're a financial institution and you're having to put this forward. For many years, it's the financial institutions more than any who've been entrusted to hold that data and keep that data secure. But at the same time, you've got all these new challenges, all these new offerings, all of these new interfaces in terms of fintechs engaging with your customers. How do you maintain that going forward? At the same time, as I mentioned, legacy impedes digital transformation. Many applications within the financial sector today really, and applications were built on legacy infrastructure, and they're difficult to migrate. We have numbers of clients who are saying, oh, we're going to migrate them to the cloud. 4 years later, they're still sitting inside their data centers. They're carrying incredible bills. They're trying to transform them onto native, and they're still struggling, and it's costing them an absolute fortune. It's not as easy as it sounds. Skills, skills come up a lot. Many people talk about the skills drain in Africa. We're losing those skills. And as we start moving into these new digital environments, how do we make sure that we're encouraging and keeping the skills that we need in order to continue to develop these sexy new applications and still maintain the legacy? It's still critical because it's still relevant. Security and compliance, I've mentioned this and it's going to come through, but it's a key element of the discussions today. And at the same time, we need to be able to show time to market. We need to put new services out there, and we need to do this still while maintaining a very heavy burden in terms of our legacy mainframes and our legacy IT infrastructure supporting often our core banking platforms and many other applications that we have. So how can we help you, or what have we been doing? So this is an evolving story. The VMware journey is a journey that has evolved over, many years, I think really starting in 1998, and led to a number of acquisitions. And many of those acquisitions really, over the last couple of years, have really been focused on application modernization. So I'm not going to talk tech today. I've got two worthy colleagues sitting over there who will be hosting a couple of sessions that really talk about security at the edge and around using network security in order to protect your customers' data a little bit later in the specialist sessions at 3:30. But at the end of the day, what I'd like to talk to is the strategy that we're taking in order to assist our customers going forward and really driving a customer-first strategy. So from our side, we have a few considerations in terms of, leveraging technology in order to become a digital-first bank. So, resilience. At the end of the day, how can we enable you to embrace cloud, right? But build in resilience, taking into consideration the real factors that we have in Africa. Munye spoke about his father not being in a place where there was internet, right? Ooh. Did I do that? No, it's over there. You're confusing me. I've got a disco going on here. Well, he's mentioned that, and the reality is we're in Africa, right? We often don't have power. We have infrastructure issues that we have to face. Customers, and I'm going to talk to one specific case study. At the end of the day, public cloud may be suitable for certain applications, but other applications still have to be hosted in a private data center. But then you need to deliver applications to the edge. How can you deliver those applications to the edge if they're sitting in, somewhere where there's not even a remote office or a branch or a kiosk? And how can we make sure that the way we're delivering them is in a way that's secure, consistent, easy to manage, and effectively delivers the most excellent service to the customer at the end of the day? All of this obviously talks to innovation and growth, right? In order to innovate and grow, you've got to deliver these sexy applications at the end, and they've still got to correlate and tie into the back end in order for you to provide that single pane of glass and that single view to the customers. Customer first, delivering exceptional customer experiences. Customers don't take your systems being down very well, right? This is something at the end of the day that's a major, major concern for banks. The moment a bank is in trouble or an application falls over, it's all over the media like there's no tomorrow. There's a direct impact on your customer base. And that lays true with any organization, really, and you're going to see it more and more. I just think that the banks and the financial institutions are the front end of this because they really are on the front end of driving these experiences. Empowering employees. That's another discussion. Customers are not only those who are receiving your services, as end users. Customers are also your employees. We've all gone through the most radical shift in industry over the last few years in terms of COVID. How you as an organization have managed that with your staff is critical, and it would have been critical in terms of the foundation of whether you survived or not. Suddenly overnight we all had to start working from home. We had to deal with the fact that suddenly we had perhaps a workforce who was not mobile, had to become mobile. They had to access the applications from their homes, from wherever they were, from on the road, overnight and in a secure, consistent manner with no disruption. And more you'll be finding when you start talking to recruitment companies, when you start talking to HR inside the organization, one of the biggest things that comes forward is that employee experience in terms of their digital experience within the organization is one of the most critical in terms of staff retention and attracting new talent into your business. And of course, preserving customer trust and protecting data. As I said before, this is the crux of it all. I mean, we're now playing with some incredible information. Data provides us with so much opportunity and so much potential to really truly differentiate your services. But Africa is complex, right? Probably one of the most complex out there in the financial services sector when it comes to regulation and compliance, and especially when it's cross-border. I mean, if you think about the financial institutions here, many of them Pan-African, some of them dealing with over, 52 countries in Africa? You know, many of them dealing with 30+ regulatory boards, regulatory compliance requirements, and at the end of the day, each of them very, very, very complex. And I think it was Caroline who referred to the fact that, we can't let regulation throttle us. You can't let regulation hold back your progression in terms of the digital world. So, literally, our response to this is something called a single digital platform. And this is really something that VMware continues to grow from and develop from. And that is really enabling our customers to leverage from both their traditional IT and their modern IT, their traditional applications and their modern applications, and manage them in a single framework. So effectively, no matter whether you're trying to access your applications or your key technology in the public cloud, in your private data center, in a remote office, or perhaps in a far edge type of setup, you have the same feel, look, access, control, and management across the board, all using the same skill set. So at the end of the day, you're not having to re-platform, you're not having to re-engineer, you're not having to re-skill. You're effectively taking the skills and the capabilities that you have in your VMware IP, and you're reutilizing them across the board. By doing this, you're able to deliver agile, faster software releases. You're answering the business requirements. One of the biggest, let's call it, having worked in the financial sector with many of my customers in the past, one of the biggest bottlenecks or one of the biggest pains is shadow IT, right? Business says, you're not delivering fast enough. I found this sexy new solution. I'm going ahead with it. Ops turning around and saying, but it's not compliant. You can't deliver this. We're not ready for it. And the business going, how can you not be ready for it? You need to deliver it now. What if we're giving your developers the same environment, the Kubernetes type environment? You can, ramp up, you can spin up, you can play around, you can do everything in a sandboxed environment inside your VMware domain that enables you to deliver a secure, compliant offering that aligns to your management requirements inside the organization. Responding faster. Effectively you're responding faster to both customer needs on the internal perspective as well as an external perspective. And as I said, security is then built in from the ground up. Security, management, visibility, control from the ground up, all in one single digital platform. So, where have we done this before? I could have pulled up many stories here, and I'm going to pick on two individual stories. So the first was State Bank of India, and the reason I chose State Bank of India is, I think, similar to the Ministry of ICT discussion that we had earlier. They needed to step up. They needed to provide, what was their goal? Their goal was to become the digital platform for banking services in line with the digital platform or the digital requirements that were being pushed down from a governmental standpoint. They had a vision to bring the entire range of financial products and services to all Indians, very similar to what we're dealing with in Africa, right? Fintech, what we're doing, how we're leveraging, to reach the cashless society, to reach our areas where we can't traditionally reach them. And this is a very similar story. And effectively, through partnering with VMware, State Bank of Nigeria managed to lower their IT costs by around 80%. They centralized their IT, they simplified their processes. Now you know this. I mean, this is something that's not new when it comes to VMware and virtualization and the returns. But the real costs and the real impact of this was not only in terms of the IT and the infrastructure and modernizing IT and infrastructure, but it was also around the power side of things. Cooling, the power it took to maintain those environments. And those are other real factors. And I'm going to talk to another story in a minute which really amplifies that from an African standpoint. Through working with VMware, they reduced the app provisioning time from months to days, again, pleasing your users. You know, I did mention on the panel this morning, at one point in my life, I was involved in application lifecycle management. That was like 5-6 years ago. And the big discussion on the table then was DevOps, right? You had your developers creating dev, you know, sexy stuff. And you had the ops guys going, this is my baby, do not break it, you cannot break it, okay? And effectively you had to get the two to collaborate. You know, they had to get together, they had to scrum, kind of see that as like in the rugby pitch, you know, you all get in there and you a bit of a fight until you get your way. And you find the right answer at the end of the day for what your customers need and what you need as an organization. And that's very much where we are in terms of traditional and modern apps and going into the future. So again, as I said, with State Bank of India, through working and collaborating with us, they really, as I said, reduced that app provisioning time. They improved business continuity. They reduced downtime from just, you know, from days. I mean, they really were struggling in terms of days of downtime to just a few hours per year. And at the same time, and I spoke to this a moment ago, they allowed over 1 million employees to work from home over COVID. And they had a significant uptake in terms of their staff productivity. So it was really, it's quite a phenomenal success story, and I'm happy to share more offline, but that's really some of the key snippets from it. This story is hot off the press, yet to be released. So this is a launchification of the Cellulent story. So you've heard about Cellulent today. I heard a number of individuals who work for or did work for Cellulent earlier. But I'm very proud to say that we've been working closely with Cellulent through one of our other partners, Pure Infrastructure, who's a VMware cloud provider partner, to address a real business case in Africa. This will be released to market fairly shortly, so please don't look at the slide and say, doesn't look great, because I did this overnight on a plane, and I tried to present it to you in a format that would make the most sense. So Cellulent is a Pan-African Kenyan-based Pan-African fintech. What surprised me with Cellulent when I sort of went through the journey is they deal with 33 regions in Africa. They have 18 locations, they deal with 33 regions, and they came forward to ourselves and Pure Infrastructure and a number of other providers with their problem. And the issue was that their infrastructure was aged, okay? It was falling over. They weren't able to deliver the services that they need to, so they said, okay, fine, well, what's it going to cost to upgrade this? And it was cost prohibitive. I mean, it was no way they could continue to deliver the services that they needed to deliver and just replace this infrastructure. So they needed to find a solution, which is where we put them in touch with our cloud providers. At the same time, they needed to manage, monitor, scale, have true visibility in terms of how to consume, and they had to provide solutions in areas where there wasn't necessarily a data center. So they needed to take advantage of public cloud, private cloud, where data centers existed, where branches existed, et cetera, and also perhaps where you're at the remote edge, where nothing existed. So effectively, between ourselves and Pure Infrastructure, we, in a nutshell, have been able to provide a solution that allows them to, one, address the compliance and regulatory requirements that they have across these different borders and requirements in order to host data, retain data sovereignty, remember, in the location. I think one of the gentlemen today mentioned that. Spin up data centers and effectively provide a cloud wherever it is needed, but in the most cost-effective manner and in the most secure and compliant way. And I'm really proud to say this will become a new release story in the coming days. So a super African story in terms of in terms of how we're working with, supporting, and collaborating with our partners in order to make that happen. So net, you know, I hope my presentation gives you a good overview of, you know, why VMware. You know, it's not a new story. You know, we come from 1998. You know, We kind of surprised the world and made it sexy to do vMotion, for those of you who know what I talk about, where you could go, whoa, and it would move across the stage and everybody very excited, to today, where we're talking about really providing you with a single digital platform that supports both your legacy and modern apps, delivered in a secure and consistent manner. So, at the same time, we have 20 years of working in the fintech industry. Our largest, if I look at Africa and if I look at our customer base, our niche space is the financial industry and in the telco industry, as well as retail and a number of others. But we really do lead in Africa with the financial space. And I would like to thank our customers for your support in terms of making that happen, and your faith and the collaboration that we see, because we really do take a lot of feedback from our region back into the central teams in order to continue to evolve our solutions around that. I'm not going to talk about the number of customers that we have and how great we are and how many employees, et cetera, et cetera. I really just want to talk about the collaboration that we have with our customers and how it really differentiates the way we go to market. On a final note, I have some really personal news. So, again, hot off the press. So some really exciting news on the foundation of the success that we have in East Africa, and our growing team here. We're actually opening a formal branch. We've been operating here for quite some time under the umbrella of Dell Technologies. Super excited to say that in July we'll be formally VMware Kenya, which is super exciting. More to follow in official press releases, etc. But I did get the go-ahead that I could release this information to share with everybody today, which is really, it talks to, the tremendous opportunity we see, the growth that we see in the region. I think the journey together and the collaboration and the opportunity together is exponential. So thank you for your support. I hope you enjoyed the sessions today. And yes, please join Marcus and Michael later for a bit more of a technical deep dive in the specialist session. So many thanks for your time, and enjoy lunch.